Hi, welcome to another lesson for Skills and Beyond. Today I'm going to explain the grid for the key of F major and D minor. So what you want to do before we get started is go ahead and grab this piece of paper. Grid scale pattern for key of F major and D minor. And by the way, we're not going to be playing the ukulele in this lecture, so just take a lot of notes, okay? So we'll go pause the tutorial, grab your paper, we'll get started in about a second. Okay, so I take it you went and got your paper. I have written down before me almost the same thing as your paper, just I don't have every note on the fretboard, only things I'm going to be talking about in the example. So you want to be referring to your paper and the information on here. This paper has the information about the family of chords. Very important that you have completed the tutorials and lessons covering this section, because now we start to put it all together in conjunction for the scales working in conjunction with the family of chords, so that you know how to use them. And in the next tutorial we're going to show you on the ukulele how to play them. Okay, so very important to take a lot more notes on this as we explain how it works. Okay, so we're in the key of F major or D minor, however you want to call it, but for now, for explanation purposes, I'm going to just talk about that we're in the key of F major, but you know what I'm talking about. So in the key of F major, this is the grid on the ukulele that you have all the notes. So in other words, you're looking at this. This is just like an example, but this is all your notes on the fretboard. Keep in mind in F major, in your signature, you're going to have one flat. That means all the B's, all the B notes have to be B flat. Okay? And you notice here's a B flat, B flat, B flat. So be aware of that when you're playing them. Your grid and your scales in the key of F major and D minor, you got a B flat in there. You got to be aware of that. Okay. One thing to pay attention to is that location. Location of ukulele fretboard. On top of here, you can see 3rd fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, etc. What I did on one of my older ukuleles was I went and put some dots on it. So you can see there's some dots that symbolizes where the frets are. And you know, I chose the 3rd fret, 5th fret, the 7th fret, etc. with those dots. Okay, I talked about it in a previous lesson on how to put those dots on so you can better locate your fretboard and your fingering. That's something to keep in mind when you're playing. Now, hopefully you got something to write with, because we're going to talk about the family of chords down here for a second. So if you look down here at the bottom of the paper, you can see like the family of chords for the key of F major is you got an F, a G minor, A minor, B flat, C7, D minor, etc. Underneath that you got the Roman numerals. Very important to know that in this family of chords for the key of F major, what your chords are. Okay, because basically if you're locating the 1, 4, and 5, 7, which is the F, B flat, and C7, 1, 4, and 5, 7, when you're using those chords in a particular song, in general, you can play any of these notes, okay, and they will work. They will not sound out of place. They will work. Some will sound more interesting than others, but they'll all work. Now keep in mind that this is kind of an advanced lesson, so you know we moved from the basic lessons and we were jumping on to the more advanced lessons. So now when you're playing, this is what you want to do. You want to think of the grid. So in other words, when I'm playing lead lines on a string instrument or like the ukulele, I'm thinking of the grid. I'm not thinking of scales. The scales were to help you understand where the notes fall, how scales are constructed, and then from that, how to utilize the notes from the scale to create your own melodies and lead lines. So at this point, this is kind of beyond scales now, okay? We're thinking more of the grid. So when you're playing, you're thinking about how to get from one point to the other. So let's just say, okay, we'll start from the F note, since we're talking about the F major key and the F major grid. We're starting from the F note, so we want to get from point A to point B, or whatever we want to go to. So for an example purposes, we're going to say we want to get from here to there, F, okay? So there's various ways that we can go to get to that, and that's how you will think or decide on how you want to do that. It's like the same concept of a map, from going from your house to your local grocery store, or your local convenience store, or the gas station, or whatever the case may be. You're going from one point and you know how to get to the other point, and you probably know several ways to get there. Like, you know, from your house to wherever you're going. Since you live in this certain neighborhood, you probably know a bunch of streets and how to get to the other location in several ways. Same concept in how you're thinking about the grid. When you want to get from one point to the other point, you want to make sure that you know several ways to get there. So that's the idea, that how you're playing. Now, when you're playing, I would say mess around with it for a little bit and play things that are interesting. In the upcoming tutorial, I'm going to show you how to practice it. And what you want to do is, I know this can be a little overwhelming, but what we're going to do in the upcoming tutorials, we're going to break it down into sections, practice it into sections, and learn it piece by piece, and then finally, hopefully, putting it all together. But I'm just letting you know the end result, the end goal. What you're trying to do is you're really trying to envision and picture this entire grid. Keep in mind, we're missing some notes. I didn't write in all the notes, but you have all the notes on your paper, okay? So that you can have this resource to play whatever it is you want to play, okay? So once again, you want to know the notes on your grid. You want to know your family of chords, what chords works with what scale, and we discussed that in a previous tutorial. So this should be review, and you should be now starting to piece it together. If not, if it's a little unclear, you may have to go back to that previous tutorial, re-listen to it again, take notes on it better, or whatever the case may be, so that you can realize that the notes, the scales, the grid works in conjunction with the family of chords, and certain chords work better with the scales and the grid. Okay. That being said, at this point, you either kind of understand it, you have a strong foundation, or maybe it's unclear. Whatever the case may be, you have to decide that maybe you want to do some refreshing on the previous course, the previous lesson that leads up to this, okay? Now, if you're ready to go on, in the upcoming tutorial, we're going to teach you how to practice the grid. It's very important that you understand this point, this lesson, before you move on, because the next lesson after that, we're going to show you how to play it. And if you don't understand up to this point, it's going to be very confusing, okay? So once again, please back up the tutorial, give it another listen, see if you got a good, strong understanding, a good foundation. It should definitely make some sense to you, okay? Like I said, if it doesn't, you got to go back and listen to those previous lessons, previous tutorials that precedes this lesson before you go on any further, because it's going to get a lot more advanced and maybe even a little complicated if you don't have a good foundation. That being said, once you think you're ready to move on to the next lesson, we shall see you there.